at the Waveform Studio, we like to kick things off with a bang. And when Machine took down Tang in a very convincing fashion, he made sure we did just that. Welcome back, everybody, to the WESG North American Finals. We're making football a thing of the past temporarily and moving into StarCraft 2.
$10,000 to whoever wins this best of 7. A second place winner still going to be walking away with $7,500. I know that both Scarlett and Neeb big on stock options right now, so they're going to be playing a little bit with that money. But who will walk away the bigger winner?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? We talk about WESG. I think about last year, and I think about other results. Scarlett overcoming Masa in the Canadian final. Awesome. Of course, we have our players getting ready, picking their maps. Got a nice little fancy setup, of course. Big conversations in StarCraft. The map pool being used here for the off-season before we get in any of the major Blizzard competitive circuits next year. How is this going to impact things? I think we're actually still playing on the old map pool. How is that going to impact things with the new balance that's been implemented into the game? A lot of changes being made for all three races. Of course, we'll be seeing Protoss versus Zerg here, but I won't lie. The map pool here does make me feel a little bit better for Neeb.
Yeah, and it's actually really fun because with the new map pool and the new balance happening at the same time, there's been a lot of change-ups. Of course, we got to see a little glimpse of this in the StarCraft scene with things like Home Story Cup and Nation Wars recently being played on these new maps and the new balance patch and everything. But I think these two players, we haven't actually seen too much of on the balance patch. It's mostly just been their few games of experience in Nation Wars, but we did get to see a bit of PvZ from both of them, and both of them actually had some pretty different ways they approached it. I feel like Scarlett was playing a lot of really aggressive styles, and I know she actually has, we were sitting at dinner and talking, and she was telling me about some of the stuff that she likes to do last night, and then Neeb, on the other hand, in Nation Wars, has been going for extremely long games.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? When you talk about what players are good at, what they're good with, as we are getting into it.
Oh, both these players have come out here for a big prize pool. And again, only one of them is going to be walking away the first place.
And we are loaded in Fear Dragon, spawning in the bottom right of Ephemeron, which got added to charge. So with that being removed, Zealots are now faster. That's how they compensated for it. They're very fast, but they don't do that free damage. So you have to, once again, have the attack upgrade advantage over the Zerg's Carapace in order for Zealots to two-shot Zerglings, which is that's quite a bit more to have to do, considering that all you had to do was get charged before and then Zerglings sucked.
And what that basically means now is that it's something that you can still invest into. You can get up your forge, start your upgrades, be on point with all this. But now you can't really just do an all-in because there's no all-ins that are going to hit with charge and 7 gateways and enough Zealots with a War Prism to do the damage while also getting a forge with +1 weapons. It's not really a thing.
At this level, with players as good as Neeb and Scarlett, those types of considerations are absolutely massive for trying to pull off a build. It could be the difference between that attack hitting 30 seconds earlier or hitting just a bit right after the Zerg's upgrade finishes because you have to squeeze that forge and +1 in. And it definitely doesn't work very well with the whole... Well, the other part of it, too, is that Protoss players would take all their probes off gas as well because they wanted to get as many Zealots as they can, and you wouldn't be able to do that as quickly this time around. So Ephemeron is still one of the maps that's in the ladder pool right now from last season. So both of these players should have plenty of experience on the new patch in this matchup, specifically on this map. Some of the other ones, Disco Bloodbath being an example, has been rotated out of the pool, so unless they're doing a lot of custom games on that map, we won't see them have as much experience with the new patch on it. Although it was only taken off the ladder pool like a few weeks ago. So.
Yeah, it's still fairly recent in all of their minds, so I'm not too worried about that part. A little pylon block going on over here, and Neeb just trying to be annoying and try and delay things. If that Adept can get across the map fast enough, can cause some little pieces of havoc and pain. But I will say, Neeb opening up with a Stargate, this is the most typical thing, not only for Protoss, but especially for Neeb.
Yeah.
If there's one player in the North American scene, I have to say, is almost to a fault, does the same thing extremely often, it would be Neeb. Neeb has been that player that says, this is my build, this is like the way that I think is strong to open. I can do this every single game because I will just outplay you, and that's how I'll win. And Scarlett, sometimes the player that will try and take advantage of that. So just keep an eye on that little tidbit of information throughout the best of 7.
Yeah, I mean, the other great considerations for this particular strategy out of Neeb is that it keeps you safe against a lot of things. First, this Phoenix is going to come out, can clear out Overlords, deny a bit of scouting. It can do scouting of its own. But perhaps even more importantly is you have the Oracle, which can not only do harass in Scout, but it can also defend against things like Ling Floods, which we certainly know Scarlett to be a big fan of.
Oh, yes, absolutely. She's been doing a couple of Ling and Baneling busts actually recently, even in her run against Asuna, I think, in her run of the Canadian qualifiers for WSG.
Yeah. I think perhaps even more importantly now, too, you brought up earlier Neeb's strategies that he was doing in some other tournaments, but big Protoss Air. More players are willing to try and do it a bit more. Specifically because you had the Flux Veins added, which some players are still 50-50 on. We're seeing people use it. People want to experiment with the speed Void Rays. Basically, it's just a big speed upgrade for Void Rays. It makes them very, very fast.
Very fast.
But also, the Infested Terran is no longer in the game. It's been removed from the Infestor. It was replaced with a sort of anti-air shroud of sorts.
Microbial shroud,
It covers ground units from 50% of damage from air units. So you could put it over Spore Crawlers or Queens when you're fighting against carriers. It's more of a defensive ability than spew out 100 zombies with rocket launchers to blow up the Protoss army in 3 seconds. So because of that, the Golden Armada is becoming a little bit more of a thing. People are trying to use it a little bit more. You know, it's definitely a better scenario than in the last patch for the big Protoss Air. So we'll see if Neeb ends up going there. As the Oracles and Phoenix come in with that first poke, but the Adepts 5 of them going to shade into that natural mineral line, getting some drone kills, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, already up to 5 kills and going up to 6 with a couple of Lings also being picked off. The Adepts going to shade over to the main base. Lings trying to deal with this. The Oracle's coming from behind. 7 drone kills and still racking up a few more with some good target fire. He can actually kill a few more, but the Lings are starting to finally clean these up. At the end of the day, trading a few of those Adepts for some good drone damage, I'm on board.
And here's the big kicker, right? So behind this, the worker count got evened out, right? We know that Zerg can use their larva to build a lot of workers very quickly, but Neeb took his 3rd base right before this attack started, so he's going to be able to triple pump out probes. He's getting his Forge and his Twilight, but I think even bigger is he has all 3 of his Oracles still alive.
Yes.
So Scarlett can't really counterattack because, well, Oracles, they microwave Zerglings. They're very good against them. You're going to try and kill a Nexus, good luck, but Scarlett looking for some purchase and finding none. Probes are being rotated over to the base, but she's not going to be able to get any, and Neeb continues to scout with those Oracles. As long as he keeps those alive, it's going to be very hard for Scarlett to move out on the map until she gets some later game tech.
Absolutely. I think if there's another thing I really want to credit Neeb for as a player is he is a very, very solid defensive player. His defenses are extremely difficult to break most of the time, and just a lot of that good control, keeping those Oracles alive, making sure all the units in the right position at the right time, is one of his trademark things. But now adding in a few of these little move outs here, forcing Scarlett to make some more units that are not drones, so she can't get into that infestation pit safely. But there is that Nidus Worm.
She's going to go for it. So Scarlett right now is basically hoping to defend this attack and then go on the counter with presumably Swarm Hosts, perhaps even just Roach Ravager if Neeb throws everything away here. But she wants to apply pressure with those Swarm Hosts, attack from range. And Swarm Hosts are like... it's a bit of a long-term investment, right? You get a big down payment. That first Locust wave can oftentimes pay off the cost of the Swarm Host, and at that point they're just generating infinite value once they start killing stuff beyond the first wave. And if you're a Protoss player and you get caught off guard by that, it's very easy for things to spiral out of control as your economy just can't really keep up with the endless waves of locusts that are going to pour out of that. So Neeb is on the lookout, but he hasn't spotted the Nidus, and he's going to see it now as it finishes.
Yeah, and that means that the Queens are already going to be able to unload. They will be there to protect that Nidus Worm. The Roaches and Ravagers are also going to be making a poke in at the front door here for Neeb, but he's throwing down a couple of stasis traps, trying to just get some sort of defenses up to buy time, because a lot of this is going to be about buying time, keeping as much of your army alive as possible, surviving the first couple of waves, and then building up to a large enough army you can go for a big counter swing.
Yeah, Neeb getting some extra shield batteries up as he continues to power up his forces, getting that +1 attack for those Zealots as well to help deal with the Zerglings. There are some of those mixed in. First wave of Locust is going to come out as the Swarm Hosts have arrived.
Look at all
Scarlett
the stasis traps.
bringing the pressure. So the hope here, stasis is going to soak up those Locusts. I believe they still time out while frozen, so it's going to delay that one wave.
Yep.
But the Ravagers are going to come up too and try to get some extra damage in on this.
Oracle's adding in some good DPS because the Queens are so far back, but eventually those Queens are going to start making their way forward. Zealots, unfortunately, going to be dying over here, but some force fields really going to make this a much easier position to defend against just waves of Locusts. This is the key thing here. A Swarmhost player is not good at defending because all of their units are on the other side of the map and the Swarmhosts are on a time limit. So these Zealot counterattacks are going to throw a huge wrench into the problem, or a huge problem in Scarlett's face.
Yep, and this is the nice thing too, because we talk about the Zealots had that free damage removed, but they also have that move speed buff, which allows them to get around for those backstabs a lot faster. So now Scarlett, we get to see her first-person perspective, trying to multitask. Some of these Queens getting stuck in the middle of the map. She is trying to run all over the place right now to deal with that Zealot harass. But once she cleans it up, we're going to see her go right back to, see, there you go, the rally into the Nidus. Building some spines at home this time, though. She's decided, I don't want to take too much more damage from these run-bys, but it is a bit easier to get across the map with those very quick charge lots.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that while Neeb's economy is still very healthy right now, if Scarlett gets one wave of Locusts in an opportune moment, snipes off a Nexus or something...
There are so many. There are so many Swarm hosts. Yeah, and I'm getting pretty concerned here, Fear Dragon. I don't see how Neeb cleans this up and gets to the other side of the map. There's just too many Swarm hosts, too many Locusts. Even though he's trying to push the army back, the natural walls being broken. I think the Cybernetics core being dead now means we're not going to be able to have any more sentries added to try and force field this off. The rocks being broken means it's a huge gap of space. Just grab these Queens, though. That's nice.
That's going to be really, really helpful over here because I think he just grabbed every single Queen, and that means that there's not going to be any anti-air. The Oracles can do a bit more damage. And now the Zealot counterattack over in the main base, sniping off the Spore Crawlers, sniping off a few of these other units, pulling Scarlett apart.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, you know what? I think that's the most important thing for Neeb to do is just get Scarlett off of his back, and it seems to be working. Denying that +2 attack would be huge. We know with how fast the Locust attack, they actually benefit quite a bit from those upgrades, but having to bring everything home does give Neeb time to move out, and you see he's starting to clear out those Nidus worms. He's also got a fleet beacon on the way, so he's thinking about bringing the Golden Armada to the party too.
Yep, and remember, he's also building up more of that storm energy, and the storms are what's going to allow him in the main fight. When he finally engages directly against the Swarmos, that is how he will take care of that big wave of Locusts without just losing his entire army. So, if he can find that opportunity to just get a really good wave of storms off on the Locust wave, he can go for that counter swing and finally move actually across the map with his main army.
It's still difficult because the Swarm hosts are alive, and as long as they are alive and able to keep pumping out waves of Locusts, it's going to be very hard to move around. There are 2 Nidus worms to escape through over here for Scarlett, but Neeb is going to be able to get on top of them. And this 4th base going up right in the face of all those Swarm hosts. I think Scarlett's
Swarm hosts don't do anything on their own. They need a wave of Locusts.
She's wishing they were off cooldown right about now, but she's going to go for a big counterattack. 3 Oracles. Don't think they're going to be quite enough to stop this on their own. Neeb warping in a huge round of Zealots. Scarlett is not going to give up her aggressive posture. She really wants to keep Neeb from pushing across the map. Big Biles killed 2 of the Oracles, by the way.
Oh, that's going to hurt a bit. But, I mean, the Roaches and Ravagers didn't end up doing too much damage. It's the damage at the 4th base that's really going to be notable. Denying Neeb that 4th base really puts a timer on him because his main base and even his natural are going to start mining out soon.
Yeah, this is tough. So Neeb with the fleet beacon, he's going to build a mothership, and that's going to be able to cloak the ground units. The mothership is actually not bad versus the Swarm host because usually your army is so far away from the Locust, you don't have detection, and then the Locust can't shoot anything because the whole army is invisible, including your buildings if you bring it back far enough. So that's not a bad option since Scarlett's still on this mostly lair tech army. She is getting a Spire and a Hive now, but there may very well be a window of opportunity for Neeb to try and make a big push out. Since Scarlett has denied him a 4th, I feel like his options are going to be limited mostly to going for a big push at some point.
Okay, this wave of Locusts might be a little bit problematic over here as it starts heading over to the natural. Could be picking off a few units. Doesn't look like it gets a whole lot. Nice storms being used over there. And Neeb doing a good job keeping those High Templars alive.
Great job with the Warp Prism, by the way. Neeb, he has +2 attack on those Zealots, and with how fast they are ripping and tearing through everything. Denying the Spire here would be massive. There'll be no stable anti-air. Keep in mind, Scarlett did not get a Hydralisk Den. There are no upgrades for those. She just has Queens, Roaches, Ravagers, and Swarm hosts. So I think that Hive is complete now, but what is she going to do with it?
Yeah.
Just Vipers?
pretty much all she can really get out of it right now is maybe a +3 weapons upgrade or something. But for now, it looks like Neeb is cleaning up another one of these Nidus Storms and actually cleaned up a good amount of the creep as well.
I like the bases Neeb's going for.
Hidden base.
I like this.
Oh, I love that it's a double. I love that it's a double expand
just
too.
Spreading out in general is just such a smart thing to do, because the Nidus and the Swarm hosts, they're a bit slower than they used to be, so you're just trying to create a little bit of time, you know, as long as one of those bases gets up. But I think right now, Neeb pushes across the map. He's got the mothership, and worst case scenario, he has the strategic recall, but he also has the mass recall from the mothership as well. I don't see if it's moving across. I think it is moving across the map because it's got a huge vision cone, but that's going to be quite useful. Overseer's dead, by the way.
Oh boy, that's going to be a problem soon, and you can see that the immortal count is absolutely absurd. Now these storms are going to be so important to deal with that wave of locusts, but the locust got launched so far back.
Big Mama's here, and I don't see any detection, so these locusts are just going to fly right on over. They're like, oh yeah, well there's no enemy here, so nothing for us to attack. And the Zealots are in the main. Neeb is starting to rip Scarlett apart here. And 2 Overseers in production, but with no detection. The entire army's invisible, Fear Dragon.
And one of the Overseers is almost picked off. A couple more Overseers just got made, but look at that. The Storms annihilate any wave of Locusts that are coming out on that side. And there it is, GG. Neeb takes the first game.
I am not going to lie. I thought he was in some... I thought he was in deep. Yeah. To say the least, when those Swarm hosts started bashing down the front door, he was losing key parts of his army. But shout out to the War Prism, right? Being able to get just a little bit of backstab, saying, look, your entire strategy is based on sieging me and starving me out of resources in that state. So they don't last any longer, and that really, I think, bought a lot of time for Neeb to get up that setup that he was looking for, and most importantly, that Warp Prism. If he doesn't get the Prism out...
Such an MVP.
If he doesn't get the Warp Prism out, he gets completely suffocated by the Locusts.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the Spire also comes up then, because the Zealots don't get the snipe off there. There's the Corruptors to help deal with the Mothership. There's all sorts of other problems that arise. Even Broodlords could have been on the way. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hop into game number 2 with Neeb leading up 1-0.
In the bottom right of Disco Bloodbath, we have the red Zerg player. She is Scarlett.
And up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, in that good old Ting blue, he is Neeb. Loving these camera shots.
Already an exciting start to this best of 7, I have to say. Like, you think about, what are we going to see? How much has changed? Well, Scarlett says, I'm going to keep doing what was working on the last patch because it's that good and I'm that good with it.
Yeah.
And while I totally get that vibe, you can see that it was not as... well, I'll just say, it wasn't as broken as it was during the round of 16, during BlizzCon.
I think you're allowed to say it. It got patched for a reason.
It got patched for a reason. There was a little bit more time for Neeb between those worms, especially when he started to kill them. And just Scarlett didn't feel comfortable just running all of her units into them with the enemy around because they didn't load as fast either. So it felt like it was a much more beatable strategy. Yeah. And I like that. No. I like that strategies have weaknesses, Fear Dragon.
Absolutely, and we saw Neeb do such an excellent job of explaining. I mean, we already talked about it so much, the Zealot counterattacks and everything. Now, I do want to see whether or not Scarlett decides to go for a similar sort of style, because Scarlett is the kind of player who I think is a lot harder to predict. She is willing to go for the same sort of thing multiple games in a row, but I do think she has a lot of versatility in her playstyle. She loves throwing in some all-ins here and there.
You say that, but this map is also like, if you look up Nidus, if you look up Nidus Swarm Host in the dictionary, the preview picture is actually on.
It's on Disco Bloodbath.
It's on Disco Bloodbath. This is a fantastic map for.
So Nate, for those who maybe haven't been keeping up with StarCraft and everything, maybe they didn't catch a lot of the games at BlizzCon and stuff. What makes Disco Bloodbath such a great Nidus Swarm Host map?
Well, the way that the main base is laid out on this map is pretty unique from what we've seen in the last couple of seasons, but you just have this huge amount of airspace, but it doesn't lead to the end of the map. There's just another base. Now, it would take you forever to run a ground unit over there. So you build the Nidus network just outside Vision, and you can hit the main base from there. You can also hit the bottom corner base, the fourth, that's right next to the main, with Locust as well. So your army is kept inside of your main base basically to defend, or you're running out into the middle of the field, and then those northeast bases become very heavily exposed. We saw a lot of usage of Nidus Swarm Host, especially on this map in the round of 16 during BlizzCon. I'm not, and that's why I'm not surprised that Scarlett went for it in the first game, because I had already known that she was still doing it.
Yeah.
You kind of swear by this strategy. It was nerfed, but it was not hit with like the hammer of any kind. The Swarm Host itself, the Swarm Host itself is still a very good unit if you can use it properly. That unit did not actually get touched at all. So as long as you're careful with your worms, now that they're not as good, they can still get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, especially talking about that map that you were explaining how the main base is a little bit more vulnerable. You compare it to Game 1's map, Ephemeron, where there is that main base, but it's behind the natural to third. So in a sense, you're only really defending those two locations of your natural and your third base, and then your main base is naturally just covered.
Yeah.
But not quite the case on this map.
Because in most maps, your main base is in the corner, like the natural is on this one. But on Disco Bloodbath, you're a little bit more vulnerable. So we'll see. As you brought up, Scarlett is a player that is very hard to predict. If she decides to get aggressive, I wouldn't be surprised. But it's just one of those things where maybe she thinks to herself, well, I was close. I just need to tighten up a few things here and there, and it'll be fine as we get a look at Neeb's perspective.
When I watch Neeb play sometimes, just like this, not just the speed of how fast he's moving around his camera and everything, but the accuracy. When he takes his gas geysers, it is so pixel perfect of him clicking on everything. And I'm just like, I don't think I could do this half as fast as Neeb.
No, it's so smooth.
It's mesmerizing.
It's so smooth. I'd like to be a unit in Neeb's army. He's good. He's
a trustworthy guy.
He's a good player.
He takes good care of his units. I mean, those oracles from earlier in the last game survived for quite a bit of time. But this game, he's actually only gone, I think, for maybe one oracle here, as he did immediately go into the Robo in the Twilight, as opposed to the usual 3 oracle opening that I think he's gone for a lot in the past.
Yeah, and I find this interesting because this is a scenario where we could be like, oh, what kind of attack is this going to be on the last patch? But I feel like without a Forge, you can't really say that it's anything like Charge Zealots early on. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to be an Archon drop.
I think the Immortal Sentry pushes are still a bit of a thing.
Immortal Sentry pushes, yeah. But it's a little bit harder to just call Charge Lots because they are way worse without upgrades compared to before. Good Stasis Trap.
Very nice
Killed
Stasis
3
Trap.
drones, and what's that, 6 of them locked up. Frozen in time.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of denied mining time over there. I think a drone mines like 40 minerals a minute or so, so I mean, you could do the math on that. But Templar Archives being started up pretty quickly, and Neeb did not just halt at like 44 probes or something, so this isn't going to be some sort of fake third base and all-in or something. He is maybe going to put on a bit of pressure here, but it is going to be with the intention of taking this to the later game.
Yep. So, I mean, in my mind, Oracle retention is one of the most important things, and he's done a pretty good job at that so far. This drone will bait out the Stasis Trap. But having to even just put that attention over, Neeb is still distracting Scarlett, still doing something that I would say is meaningful.
Ooh, Prism gets found very early on. I think this was going to be an Archon drop, but this gets very annoying when the Prism gets found and you can't warp in your High Templar safely. You have to try and activate the Oracle energy, create a safe haven area, but now the Zerglings come back.
You can't warp in High Templar.
I think Archon drop denied. Really nice job from Scarlett.
Yeah, he's warping him in back home right now. So good play there. The Warp Prism is going to find itself with not much to do.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think Zerg players in general have gotten so proficient at just denying a lot of the Archon drop harassment. I mean, I think a lot of pros players are happy when they say, oh, I got an Overlord with my Archon drop. Like, that's some pretty good damage, but you see that now this is going to be kind of hitting even later. There's already going to be Roaches out. This is not expected to do a lot.
Yeah, we got a Spire on the way. No Infestation Pit that I saw, and no Nidus Network. So Scarlett is shaking it up. Ling Ravager, or Ling Roach, Muta.
Aggressive Warp Prism over here. Dives straight into the main on top of Queens. Still gets out with a lot of health, but you were saying the Spire and everything coming out, and that is at the third base. Neeb poked in at the main base. He has not really gotten a whole lot of vision. Even the Observer is not headed toward the third, it's headed toward the natural.
Not seeing this Spire could be devastating. Baneling Nest too, so this is going to be just a very aggressive setup, I feel, from Scarlett, looking to catch Neeb off guard. Oh, that Observer just doesn't see it. He doesn't know.
You see a bunch of Roaches and Lings. Is your thought going straight to Mutalisks?
No. Now, Scarlett has enough gas as this Spire finishes. I think she can get 8, maybe 9 Mutas if she really wants. So catching Neeb off guard would be big here. Neeb's building cannons. Where are those cannons? Some Phoenix are going to scout. They're not going to see the mutas. Maybe this one will see the Spire.
I wonder if maybe the army was just too small for Neeb, and he thought there's something going on.
He just started Storm and +1. He's going to get some drones here, it looks like. Maybe. Oh my God, it's just there. They out of range.
Oh, maybe it'll be useful. Maybe it'll be useful later when like zealots come in with a war prism or something.
Where did Neeb build the cannons? That's what I need to know. He has some photon cannons. He put a couple up. I don't know if those are by the third, but I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety now. Here come the mutas. And
we're about to find out soon. Okay, it looks like there are in the mineral line, spreading them out.
Very important.
Look at that. Even has the war prism with the Archons readily situated to intercept the mutas.
This is beautiful. Great. Beautiful defense here from Neeb.
Does he have enough energy for a Revelation? No, not on the Oracle.
I wonder, it must have been the lack of any other tech. I guess he just assumed, he's like, well, you have nothing, so it must be just a hidden Spire, because what else would you be hiding like this? And you can see that Scarlett's react. Scarlett's like, he didn't see it. How did he? Oh! This is the part where you're like, check the chat. Is he in the chat? What's going on?
Well, the mutas have not gotten a whole lot of value, and I mean, that is a decent investment now. Scarlett still has the mutas alive, and it's not like Neeb has a bunch of Phoenix out right now and can easily just kill all the mutas. She still can actually get some good damage done, but as a few Phoenix start to pop out, this is really going to put a timer on these mutas to get something done. If nothing else, at least deny War Prism harassment.
Well, it looks like Scarlett still wants to attack. She's got all these units out on the field, wants to try to pull Neeb apart with the mutas, but just look, Storm is done. There's plenty of High Templar. You've got Archons and Immortals. Ling Ravager Roach ain't doing anything to that. Look at the look at resource log. Thank you, Observer. You are fantastic, sir.
Yeah, shout out to our Observer. He's been doing a great job, even with all the little showcasing of the map and everything. But here we go. Scarlett is now moving on in. Neeb throws down some massive storms on top of the entire army of Scarlett.
Most of the Banelings gone.
Oh, that's going to be a huge problem. Now, there are a few more Lings inside of those stasis traps that Scarlett's going to be using to keep an eye out on Neeb's army.
Extra Stargates. I feel like, I don't think the Fleet Bacon was added, but could just go for like a huge power push with this ground army and just flood out Phoenix behind in case Scarlett continues to make mutas. Looks like that's what he's going to do. He's building 3 Phoenix at a time, and Scarlett's opening up the field a little bit more by taking down those rocks, but this is such a scary army from Neeb. I'm not crazy worried about this. And look, first person we get to see, there's the Zealots getting warped in. Oh boy.
And look at that. Oh, even going to maybe go for a recall over here.
Recalls it immediately, and I like that too, because he recognizes that the mutas are going to go back for the prism as well. So he buys himself a good amount of time with just that little play. And the Greater Spire is on the way. So Broodlords could become a problem. But with this many Phoenix, the air commitment needs to be insane from Scarlett to actually protect the Broodlords. And this ground army, well, it's still plenty enough. Uh-oh, some Banelings are going to run by into the 4th, though.
Oh, getting some pretty good damage there. 9 workers killed. And remember, Neeb needs all the economy he can muster up right now because he is going into this big air transition, but Ling's actually swarming on into the mineral line, and it's going to buy some time for the Roaches and Ravagers to try and engage the army. A couple of Banelings actually caught in the stasis trap. Stay away from those, High Templar.
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to see. I'm curious when Neeb is going to make his move because he's very close to maxing out. The Fleet Beacon is done.
High Templars, please stay away. Please stay away. Okay. Shield batteries to the rescue.
Imagine if he had lost all those High Templar right there. I think you see the Corruptors, though. And he's getting Anion Pulse Crystals, so he's not even thinking carriers. He just wants to overwhelm with the Phoenix and I guess the Archon support. But I'm still asking myself, this is a quick army. This is not. It's not like you're. Okay, now he's going to start carriers. I was waiting. I'm like, you either have to start carriers or you got to attack. Yeah. Which is it going to be? It's carriers.
And I think even for a little bit, just because there are so many of the Phoenix, that against a small number of Corruptors, especially with +1 weapons research, can handle a small number for a little bit, at least buy some time for the Archons to start helping out. And maybe that will be the kind of stopgap he needs until the first round of carriers comes out for the Broodlords.
Yeah. With this many Phoenix to support too, it's going to be so tricky in getting a few of these fights.
These storms.
The ground army from Scarlett is really not that terrifying anymore. It's all about the Broodlords. I sincerely feel like the window of opportunity here is open, but I guess Neeb's fear is that he overextends, gets caught. He did burn his recall earlier, so I figured waiting for it then should be good, but recall should be back now. And I would say with your get up to maybe, 5-6 carriers and then try to push,
Yeah, I think Neeb has a lot of confidence in his late game, and that's the reason why he's been going for so many of these late game PvZ situations where he starts getting up the carriers, maybe even adding in some Void Rays or something. There's the Dark Shrine. This is one of my favorite things about Neeb. The late game Neeb play is actually getting up a Dark Shrine, getting up the DT Blink upgrade, Shadow Stride, and then going for 7 to 15 DT run buys on bases. It's a really supply efficient way to put on harassment. It's very costly, so you have to be very careful with it, but you can do a lot of damage to a Zerg player that has so much of their army just at the front.
And here we go, Scarlett pushing with the Broodlords, but there are a ton of Phoenix and those carriers, Fear Dragon, that are going to do massive, massive damage. Not to forget, of course, the Storms, the Archons, and the Immortal Backbone for Neeb trying to crash through this army. And a lot of what is on the ground, you have to, of course, be careful because of those corrosive biles, but with the Phoenix carriers support, the Broodlords, they can't run.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Archons may have been taken care of, but the Corruptors can't really fight with all those Storms coming down. A few more Archons being made, and the Ravager count is just, it's gone at this point, Nate. Now, the Phoenix count has been heavily reduced, but there's only one Broodlord left.
Yeah, and that one Broodlord is not going to save the day here, Fear Dragon. I'm sorry. Now, Scarlett is pumping out 82 Zerglings and 10 more Corruptors behind this to come and try and bring the defense. Those Archons will become extremely important again here, but this is where you got to be careful about overcommitting if you are Neeb. If this army gets completely overwhelmed, completely surrounded, you're going to be in some trouble. I don't see a Prism to reinforce. Now, Zealots can run forward to help a lot, but Banelings are being added. I like treading through with the Stasis Traps to try and create some space, but they both get triggered by just a few Lings.
And remember, +2 air weapons are going to be finishing up in a moment. Carriers hugely benefit from those weapon upgrades. It's so important to get those up. So Neeb wants a few more seconds, but Scarlett's not going to be waiting.
Look at that choke point for the Archons, by the way. Pretty insane. The Corruptors are going to dive onto the carriers, though. Neeb is going to try and pull out here. A lot of the units left to die, but the carriers at least get saved. And he's starting to pump out Void Rays and mixing in a DT there.
I'm a little worried for Neeb right now because Scarlett is still on the offensive, and Neeb, yes, he did keep the carriers alive, but he also lost almost all of the High Templars, I think.
No Overseer is funny. The DT is just, I think Scarlett saw that it killed a Ling, and then it ran off, but that can be one of those interesting plays to try and buy time. We have Infestors coming out. Neural Parasite is being researched. Can't say I'm a fan of Void Rays, personally. I get that people are excited about them because of the new upgrade, but regardless of whether or not Neeb gets it, Void Ray's big weakness, they don't have any armor by default. So they're actually really squishy units, and they're extremely expensive. So maybe without Infested Terrans, this is more doable. Without any Hydras on the field, we'll see. Another look at that big fight that we had. And the Biles actually did a lot of work. That ground army was cleaned up pretty quickly by Scarlett.
Archons got picked off very, very fast. So you could see that the Phoenix are working in on those Broodlords, but the Corruptors are actually so far back that the Phoenix are able to do that. So even though they ended up dying eventually, the Corruptors, they still got the damage done.
Yeah, now we have extra upgrades, shields, ship armor.
Neeb's maxed out again.
+3 air attack.
So, Nate, I'm actually kind of excited that the Infestors are coming out, not because of the Neural Parasite and everything, but because we might actually get to see Microbial Shroud. And here's the thing. I feel like it's been...
There's no way we see it.
I've talked with a lot of Zerg players, and it's so 50-50. Some Zerg players think it is absolutely useless. Some Zerg players are saying, no, this is actually what I've needed against a lot of the Air Protoss late-game armies.
I feel like the focus is still going to be on Neural Parasite, but I would love to be surprised. I'll say that, Fear Dragon.
Okay.
I don't see it, but I want my mind changed, if that makes sense.
I'm on board with you on that one. All right, well, the Infestors are inching their way forwards. They are very, very far on the front line, so I have to be careful about those carriers. They don't really have the support right now, but here comes the rest of the army.
This is a bit more what I was expecting to see. Some Fungals try to be thrown on those Void Rays, maybe Neural Parasite, the carriers, but this Protoss army, very, very well upgraded, very powerful, and there's just not a whole lot of anti-air. You need an insane number of Corruptors, but we have Void Rays and we have Archons, which are probably two of the best units in StarCraft at killing Corruptors.
Oh, yes, absolutely. A couple of the Void Rays are getting fungal growth, so they're having a hard time dodging out those biles. Storm coming down on top of a lot of these Roaches and Ravager, but they are also hitting the Void Rays.
Look at those Void Rays. Turn on the microwave, baby. Set it to max power.
And
GG.
there it is. Neeb taking the second game in this best of 7 in that late game situation. Nicely done.
I like it. I mean, I like the reaction. I feel like Panic Void Rays is like a meme because when you're building Void Rays, it means you're losing, but people feeling a bit more confident now. I think Infested Terrans were really one of those units that just made it feel like it was impossible to attack because the Infestor had so many options. Now the Infestor is only good at one or two things now, and without being able to spam out that, you really need to have, I think, a lot of Spores to defend against that, maybe more Corruptors.
It's a support unit now. With a 2-0 lead, Neeb's going to be in a comfortable spot to play around, but you know what the funny thing is, Nate? Neeb is not the kind of player who will. Neeb will just do the same thing again if it's working.
Guess it depends on what this player wants to do. In the bottom right of Acropolis, she is Scarlett.
And up here in the top left, we have our blue Protoss player. It's Neeb.
Neeb had, the shortest trip to get here, right? Did he just come here straight from New York?
Yeah, he actually drove here.
He drove?
Yeah.
Wow.
3.5 hours away from home. Not too bad.
I guess he wanted to take the scenic route. Huh.
No.
Sometimes I forget how close the big Canadian cities on the east side are to New York.
Scarlett was saying that all of the cities are just hugging the United States because they just want to be away from the cold. And I'm like, that makes sense when you say it that way.
It's freezing. It is. I think it's 28 Fahrenheit here right now. It is a chilly place to be. But good start for Neeb. I was just saying, he appears very comfortable.
Oh yeah.
And I like that a lot. He's like, I'll take the drive. I'm just gonna avoid the entire flying process and just feel good.
I know you're on board with that.
Good about myself.
Avoiding a flying process. I know
down.
you are super on board with that.
I am down with that. Plus, assuming that you don't run into like any lake effect snow, it's actually gorgeous to drive through upstate New York.
Absolutely. He'll have a 3.5 hour drive home to think about, if he takes 2 more games, how do I spend that $10,000? What stocks do I want to invest into?
All right, so we'll see. I guess I'm on your team with this. I expect to see Stargate again out of Neeb, him to play normal style. A lot of these maps, you still have the big air gap to the main on this one, so if Scarlett can get into a longer game, she could go for the Night of Swarm Host again. We saw her veer off of that very quickly. Yeah. And honestly, this is one of those things where you're like, Neeb exists on such a higher plane than us that I'm still not 100% sure why he built the cannon and the battery before the Mutas got there. When he didn't scout the Spire, my only assumption can be that he saw the number of gas geysers she had and that he didn't see any tech. So he's like, well, there must just be a Spire somewhere, right? What else? He's like, why would she hide a Hydralisk den, right? I would have seen Hydras already, right? Mutas are a surprise unit. Just that intuition, that game sense, that understanding of, hey, I don't see anything, and that tells me something.
Yeah.
That's why I love watching Neeb play so much, because really, I feel like many other Protoss players get caught off guard by that, and the Mutas walk in, kill a whole mineral line, and then all of a sudden the game spirals out of control.
Yeah, and as a player, one of the reasons why I became such a big fan of Neeb before his massive run in 2017 where he just dominated the circuit almost to the degree that Cyril did in 2018.
Yep.
One of the reasons why I became such a big fan of him is that, yes, of course, I'm not going to deny that there's some natural talent at play for Neeb, but realistically, he was just the player that played so much StarCraft. He played so many games that those kinds of things got beat into him through a massive number of games. And he actually had a really awesome practice, which I actually think is something almost everyone should consider doing, which is he would play a game, and every single time he would lose a game, he had a little notepad file, and I think he still does this, where he writes down, this is the reason why I lost this game. And that actually helped him learn from his mistakes so much faster because he had to consciously, physically write out the reason why I lost, and it becomes a lot more memorable. Next time he encounters that situation, he remembers, oh no, I remember, I had to write this out. I lost because I wasn't prepared for the Muta switch. I need to be wary of that.
I like that. I'm terrified that you will encourage some people to try and put it down to one thing, because for the majority of players, it's...
Yes.
I would say, look at the first time you get supply blocked for longer than 10 seconds. That's my favorite thing. People are like, well, God, it happened 6 times, but I lost because mutas are OP. I'm like,
Identifying the reason is a whole other skill set. That is true.
Being able to know the actual reason why you lost is That's how you get to.
One of my favorite examples was I was looking at a game, or I was playing a ladder game, and I was saying, oh, you know, God, I lost because of this tech switch I didn't see it coming. And Estrella is sitting there in my Twitch chat, and he's like, I think you lost because you got supply blocked to 23 for about a minute and a half. And I'm like, oh,
yep.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, you'll find very few players that will be willing to admit that, but that's what it takes to be on top. Neeb going for some serious adept pressure, very reminiscent of game number 1. Looking for a drone transfer, but as these Adepts get upside, there you go. Lifts up one, Oracles, and the Adepts kill one of the Queens, and now all of a sudden, not a whole lot to help defend against this attack from Neeb as the Queens have been belayed over at the base. Now look at this. He gets in at 5 minutes and sees a completed Hydralisk Den. This is also invaluable information for Neeb for what's coming next, which you would assume would be a big attack, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to do that now, considering that there ain't a whole lot here for Scarlett to protect her drones with.
Oh man, you even saw Neeb hovering over that recall ability and said, actually, you know what? I can take this fight. I'm still doing good. I'm still doing fine.
I'm good, man. It's all good. Look at that. More drones killed right as they spawn at that third base. The Hydralisks, there's not enough of them. The Hydras don't have any upgrades, so they're not even that great. And I think at this point, just sack the Adepts. Keep killing drones.
And
easy.
A RoboBay behind this. He's already preparing for those Hydras, and I know we've seen a lot of Colossus play over the past couple of months versus Zerg players. That's going to be great against just a Hydra Ling composition.
Oh, Neeb has completely devastated the economy of Scarlett. Whatever it was that she wanted to do, it ain't happening now. Hydra Ling Bane is commonly known to be a very good defensive composition. It's hard to attack with because of stuff like Storm, Colossus, the lack of creep to accelerate.
Unless you hit like some really early timing, which is absolutely not going to happen now.
No, Scarlett, I mean, I think a comeback here would be pretty insane. And I love what Neeb is doing. Just get up some Colossi. And I'd like to see him. I think there will be a window where he can kind of push before Scarlett's economy has recovered enough that she can actually build an army that can fight against it. He might decide to still just play it safe, but I love the use of the Colossi because I just don't feel like Scarlett can swarm out that many units. If he wants to take a 4th base right now, he could probably get away with that too.
Yeah, and one of the other kind of annoying situations here for Scarlett is that Neeb is not in the dark either. It's not like, oh, okay, he sacked all these Adepts. He doesn't have any eyes in the sky anymore. No, the Phoenix and the Oracle get a full scout of almost everything, but the Lurker Den going to be coming down.
That's a really good play.
So would you like to see Lurkers and then immediately get aggressive, or Lurkers and just kind of stay back, turtle up, get your economy back in order, and then go for later gameplay?
Well, the Lurker range upgrade is on Hive now, is it? Or can you just get that? So this is worth mentioning. The Lurker has a range upgrade.
So it's I think it was 2 changes, right? It was, I think the Lurker has, was it 1 less range?
Yeah, I think it has 6 or 7 range now, and it has an upgrade that I believe is on Hive tech,
even further,
and it gives the Lurker 10 range, which, fun fact, longer than a Colossus. So it's gonna be it's tricky to try and push into that unless you have a lot.
Okay. But actually, the Lurker base range, I'm getting actually a word from our by the way, shout out to Master Dalk, who's an old school StarCraft guy who's running production for us today. He was talking about how Lurker base range is 8 now.
It's 8. So Lurkers have 8. It used to be 9, but now the upgrade bumps you up to 10, which is huge because that's you're crossing a line there with a lot of the long range quote unquote units in terms of how long they can see. Most units vision range is 9.
Oh yeah, and I feel like there's actually just the way that a lot of maps have been laid out before. I mean, in the past, before this patch, there were so many times that the Lurkers would set up, and you were just thinking like, I literally have 1 range of leeway to maneuver around in my base without getting hit by the Lurkers. That leeway is gone once that upgrade is there.
Yeah, because now, especially because it outranges the Colossus, like you can't really tiptoe around them too effectively.
That's really big. Losing the Oracle, that's the detection right there.
Yeah, he doesn't have an observer, does he?
Can we get a check on unit count?
He just built an observer, so...
Okay. Yeah, 1 observer, that's it.
Yeah, so he has to wait for that. That does give Scarlett some time. Now, this army is still very small. There are 6 Lurkers, but... the upgrade isn't there, so they only have 8 range. The Colossi can actually shoot at them normally, as long as the Observer doesn't die, which, as we know, Observers are prone to dying to Hydras pretty badly. But I don't know if Scarlett has enough units to actually try collapsing on this, because there's no Lurker range, but also there's also no burrow speed upgrade. Scarlett is going to surround Neeb as he tries to cross down this valley. 1 Colossus does get picked off, but 2 still remain. Lurkers on the south side are going to get chewed up. Oh, but is the Observer dead? He didn't kill the lurker on the south.
No, Observer's still
Okay.
alive, and I have to say, those force fields are really, really clutch. Half of the lurkers were just completely non-existent in that fight because they got force fielded out, and Scarlett didn't even bother unburrowing them. The roaches also got kept out, so Neeb effectively did just fight half of the army of Scarlett there.
Yeah, it left one of the lurkers alive on the south side. A little disconcerting. I believe it's the adaptive talons that Scarlett's going for first, which is the burrow speed upgrade to reposition the lurkers faster.
Like that. I do think that upgrade is still
It's more
incredibly
important. Yeah, I think it's more important than the range first. The range is insanely important, but getting the speed for burrow is huge. Trying to go for a counterattack. We got a cannon with a shield battery here. Neeb did just do a warp in aggressively, so I don't know if he can actually put anything there. He's going to push up this choke point against the lurkers with 2 Colossi. Now there are 3 Immortals anchoring this. If the Immortals can target the lurkers, they can do a lot of damage, but that is a concave that is too dangerous to try and attack through. The Overseer also comes up. I don't know if Scarlett was able to get the Observer. I cannot see it, but that is huge, and that is the best possible choke point that you could get a player to attack through. She did kill the Observer.
Yep, and those Lings are still being very, very annoying. We see a recall back with the rest of the army, but that means the Lings are just going to go to the other base and try and be annoying. Scarlett's going to have to retake her own base that she did lose to that push, but I think she got some really, really valuable trades during that fight.
Yeah, well, lurkers are getting pinched off over here at the tower. Scarlett trying to reposition. There we go. She just started up the range upgrade now, and that is going to really, really start to turn the tide here. And Neeb may be forced to go back into that big air because I'm not sure anything on the ground can actually kill a large enough. I think there might just be too many lurkers.
There is a turning point where you just see a large lurker army, and even when it's not at a choke point, you're just thinking, I don't think anything on the ground. I don't think if I had 15 Immortals, I could break this number of lurkers because they just do damage way too much, way too fast in a big AoE.
All right, we do have Neeb over here. He's got an Observer with the army. Again, I do believe Scarlett tried to click on it for a second, but the Overseer not able to get to that spot.
Ground army is gone for Scarlett, though. It's just the lurkers for the most part on their own. The Banelings do come rolling on in, but look at this Neeb taking another game here. 3-0.
Very decisive play out of Neeb, and I really like to see that because, honestly, I thought he was going to, step back, throw up the Stargates, but instead he says to himself, look, I know that there's a critical mass of lurkers coming, and if he clicked on the lurker, then he knew that she didn't have the range upgrade yet. So he has to be thinking to himself, these lurkers are probably going to come kill me while I'm making that air transition if I don't win right now. Really good control, really good target firing with his units. And for Scarlett, I think it was the best play she could have made. She lost 25 drones at the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, that is actually a very, very good point. It's easy to forget that as the game started going on further and further and further. I do feel like there was a moment right at the end where Scarlett was engaging against Neeb, where most of her lurkers are up on the high ground, and all the Hydras are on the low ground. The Colossus evaporated alongside the Archons, the entire ground army, and the lurkers are, of course, very strong in large numbers, but you do still need some ground army to buffer for them. And I feel like as soon as that ground army disappeared, it was like, Neeb just said, oh, I can just dive in the lurkers now. There's actually no problem. And that's what caused like the GG right there.
Yeah, getting rid of the Lings and the Hydras, those units that tank the hits so that the lurkers can get 1 or 2 more shots in is really important. And I'm just going to say it again. He did manage to get that attack in right before the upgrade, the range upgrade for the lurkers finished. The lurkers actually couldn't hit the Colossi.
Well, Neeb has done some great economic damage to Scarlett in that last game, but he's also going to be doing some economic damage to Sasha's prize money if he takes one more game, because this is now going to be match point here on Game 4. Ladies and gentlemen, no breaks here, WESG NA Finals. We're moving into the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Top of the red Zerg player from Team Newbie. She is Scarlett.
And her opponent leading the series 3-0 in the Northeast, our US Protoss. He is Neeb.
And of course, quick reminder in the chat, if you guys are hanging around, you're enjoying this series, well, you know what? While this game gets warmed up, I want to remind you guys that there is a giveaway going on. Please type in !WGN giveaway, and you'll be entered into a giveaway for a brand new gaming chair provided by WGN and Onda Seat.
That's right. Get yourself some free stuff while you're watching StarCraft, and of course, Awesome to be here. Big shout out WESG and World Gaming having this on. What a great setup we have. Beautiful stage.
Still
awesome
have Dota coming in later as well. I know that there's a good overlap of StarCraft and Dota fans.
I think we just came in after like some soccer matches and stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much going on over here. It has been awesome.
Always a good time working with the World Gaming stuff. WSG last year was also really fun.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun doing these tournaments. As hopefully you guys have been enjoying the show. It has been a good time. Of course, we're getting through a lot of these accolades early because Neeb is up 3-0.
I know.
He could win right here. Now, I will say, we are on World of, as some people will call it, Resident Sleeper, which...
no, it's World Gaming, not World of Sleeper.
And that this map is especially known for being very difficult to push and finish off a Zerg player on, but with the way that Neeb's been playing, with how sharp he's been, I think from the last season's pool, most people thought this was the best map for Zerg. If it still is that way, there's still some good confidence, but also Neeb's got quite a bit of ground he can concede now. Yep. He doesn't need to win this 4-0, of course. So I think on this map, you just play your best style. You try to get a good, solid finish to it. But worst case scenario, you're going to go to an easier map to win on after this, no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the nice things also is that Neeb is, while again, he is the kind of player who I think will do the same sort of thing most of the games where he is very comfortable with a nice standard macro kind of style. I feel like in every best of 7, as long as it isn't just like a 4-0 that's really quick or something, he usually mixes in at least one kind of all-in. And we haven't quite seen that yet. There's been some committed pressures, but nothing I would put in like all-in territory.
I feel like with the change to the Adept, probably the most we could ask for is what he did last game, which I did really like, but I tend to agree with you. I just feel like for Neeb, that was always Adept builds. Like he would always throw in one Adept, like
that's
one
true,
Resonating Glaive build.
It usually was
in a best of 7. Like that was, at least for me, like when we would cast him in Challenger or during the circuit stops, it was always an Adept build. He had like a cool Adept build. He'd catch you off guard with it. Because most Protoss players didn't really use Adepts this year. We didn't see it a ton outside of that early pressure stage. Neeb was kind of one of the guys that would still bring it out regularly. And I just don't see that happening in this patch. I don't think we're going to see many Adepts at all unless that gets changed at some point, to be perfectly honest with you, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, I think a lot of players are feeling that way, but we do see a second Stargate getting started up, so Neeb is mixing things up. You were talking about this, I think, in Game 1, how a lot of those Pros players have really been enjoying those double Stargate plays.
I love this, though. I love this. It's funny, because you talk about stuff that's fun in a new patch, and as a Terran player, I have actually found it fun to play against Protoss players that do these Void Ray strategies. And I don't always win against them, but it's kind of like a cool option that some players have been going for. Not to say that he's going to build a Fleet Beacon now, but I think it's just another one of those options that you have if you like to go double Stargate. You know, you could put out of left field, oh, I'm going to go for speed Void Rays early on and like do some really good harass, because then at that point it's way easier to pull out versus the harass and let the shields recharge. But Neeb going to go for a lift up. We can see in first person as that Oracle trying to grab some drone kills.
Yeah, now one notable thing here is that all of the games that Neeb has been going, he has been going for Stargates, but every single one of those games, he's at least gotten 2 Oracles. This is the first game he's only going for that 1 Oracle because he wants to go straight into that Phoenix production. So if Scarlett is really paying attention, she might start thinking, okay, well, right around now is the time that normally the second Oracle should be moving across the map, and I don't see that yet. Maybe thinking about possibility of this double Stargate coming.
Neeb's pocketing the Phoenix too, right? Like there's only been one that's been moving around the map. He doesn't want Scarlett thinking about large numbers of Phoenix. And you know what? To the Protoss benefit of this massive map, very hard to get Overlords across or even Overseers if she had any trying to get around there, which makes it a little bit easier to deny that scouting. So Neeb is going to be able to very comfortably get that Phoenix count up. Now let's see if any of these Lings on the field are going to spot them while they make their way over.
Yeah, normally if you're up against a double Stargate as a Zerg, you either want double Spores in every single one of these bases, or you want a lot of Queens, or you want a Hydra Den. Guess what? We don't have a Hydra Den. We have an Infestation Pit actually starting right now, which I think is not really going to be finished in any helpful amount of time. The Queen count is actually not that high either. First Queen already getting lifted up, and there's not double Spores at all these bases. This is a catastrophe right now, Nate.
And she went for the Infestation Pit, Fear Dragon, so no Hydras coming out, no Corruptors. No mutas that are going to accidentally die that maybe buy a little bit of time. Neeb has full control over this map. And frankly speaking, because it was an infestation pit, that makes me think of Swarm Host, but those will not be particularly useful when the Protoss has such map control with the Phoenix count.
Yep, and Neeb is already thinking about that transition. Not only did that, he actually finds the Roaches in the middle of the map that were trying to go for a counterattack, hoping to catch the Phoenix off guard, get a little bit of damage on it, and force them back home. But the Phoenix find them in the middle, so this is all just free pickings while he transitions to charge.
Look at that. He's got 8 Warp Gates being added, +1 charge, and that Warp Prism. And that, to me, Fear Dragon says we are about to see a big attack come out from Neeb onto Scarlett.
Oh, this is going to be a huge, huge problem right now for Scarlett. How in the world is she going to deal with this? She should have some idea that something like this is coming, given that the Phoenix count stopped growing.
That that resources loss we were just looking at, I was just like, oof. That's
a big oof.
Yeah. What did he just lost, like, what, the 2 Phoenix? That was it?
Yeah, that's a pretty cost-efficient army. That's not too bad. You know, 300 is less than 1,700 last time I checked high school algebra.
We got those very fast. We got those Ladanian Tomlinson lots coming across the field, Fear Dragon, and I don't know if Scarlett's going to be able to make the tackle on this play, because this is a big push making its way into that third. Scarlett does have some Ravagers, so Neeb needs to be a little bit careful with the positioning of the Warp Prism, but the Queen's distracted, and the Warpin finishes. The Prism dies, but the Warpin finishes, and these Zealots are going to get right onto everything. +1 is done. Now lifting up the Ravagers with those Phoenix. Neeb says, I want to be the champion of North America. I want to be the champion here for WESG today. And Scarlett desperately trying to defend this. Neeb cannot reinforce anymore, so it's possible that if she can just stop this attack, she will have a little bit of time to breathe. Yes, Neeb is going to recall the few units that are still over on the other side of the map, rebuilds that Prism, adds some more Zealots, but I'll tell you what, it looks like he just wants to wind up and go for that knockout punch, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, took care of the Spore Crawler over here as well, so the Oracle's actually still going ham on top of these drones, evening up that worker count, and is going to make it so much harder for Scarlett to reinforce for the second wave. Look at that, we got the slow motion replay.
That was huge, though. That was huge, because if that Prism doesn't die right there,
it would be over. It would actually be over.
The game is already over if that doesn't happen. But now, I think with the amount of gas Neeb has, he's going to wind up maybe take that 4th base, but with the Templar Archives being added, I think you build as many Immortals as you can. Yeah, okay, get +2 attack. Dump all your gas into Archons, and I feel like with the economic damage Neeb has been able to do, he's setting himself up to be able to do another big push like he did on Acropolis. I mean, sans Colossi, but still.
Well, Scarlett, of course, does have a bit of a supply lead, and that is heavily because of the Roach count. The Roaches are going to be that inflated supply, and it's not like Scarlett actually has been able to make use of, say, the Infestation Pit too much outside of now finally getting up some of those Vipers. And we'll see how much of a difference those Vipers can make in the battle.
And this pressure, too. Just this pressure is so nice. One more kill here. Okay, Parasitic Bomb. I actually really like that. So just force the Phoenix to have to micro away. It's guaranteed damage on the Phoenix it tags. So pretty easy kill on one Phoenix there. Could use the Vipers to try to
find the Vipers.
Well, the Hydras do take out one of the Phoenix there. Viper count's going to be big, though, because Abduct is good. Blinding Cloud's going to be really good against this type of army, as it's already a low-range force.
Oh, that's a lot of High Templar.
Storm isn't done yet, though, so Neeb still needs to be smart if he steps out onto the field. Feedback, of course, would be huge. 2 more Robos. I like everything about this, except... Okay, there's the 4th base, finally. That was he took his sweet time getting that 4th up after that push.
Yeah, I guess just really trying to power up the army for the big push to come forward at maximum power, and then take the 4th base behind it with the safety of knowing that if there are any units on the other side of the map, then Scarlett's going to have a harder time defending. But Scarlett's actually going to be coming to him. Revelation already tagged on his army.
Storm's not done. Storm is not done. There's a lot of High Templar in this army, and Storm is not ready, so... I see a world here where if Neeb takes this fight, he actually could lose everything. Now it's finishing. This is really important. That's a matter of 10 seconds, but it's going to have a huge impact on this game. Vipers are trying to get some abducts, but could get some feedbacks possibly before that happens.
Yeah, the abduct animation actually takes a little bit of time. Ooh, nice Storm. But yeah, if you do get abducted, you do have like a split second to try and get some feedbacks off.
Yeah, and now triple Immortal being pumped out. I do like this. The Spire is going to finish soon. Hive is ready, but it's going to be a little bit of time before Broodlords can get out onto the field. I don't see this as like a Mutalisk scenario. There we go. Blinding Clouds get dropped. There's the feedbacks and the big storms onto the Hydra Ravager. Scarlett's army being ripped to pieces by this Protoss force. Now, don't forget, triple Immortal production behind this during that Zealot harass too. So Neeb's army is going to be able to get back in shape pretty damn quick, Fear Dragon.
And not only that, it's going to be such a cost-efficient army with heavy, heavy Immortal counts. It's going to be a problem. And you'll see over
Those
here,
feedbacks,
it's just
so good
the
too.
feedbacks and then that one storm. The High Templars, the super MVPs of that fight.
Yeah, Neeb, I mean, we talked about it, getting all those High Templar right as Storm was starting to research. It feels a little risky, but then you have so much energy banked up, and Zerg doesn't have an answer for that. There's no feedback on the Viper or the Infestor, Fear Dragon.
No. Oh, War Prism does get found by the Queen, but there's just not that many units over here. The War Prism is not going out of phase mode, so it seems like it might get picked off by the Spore Crawler plus the Ravagers.
Neeb's a little more focused, I think, on the frontal assault here. You know what? That actually baits out a lot of energy from the Viper by putting that parasitic bomb onto the Phoenix that isn't really doing a whole lot. Big storms on the ramp. Yeah, come down here and try to defend your base. Good luck. So many Immortals with this army. Plenty of storms to go around, and Neeb is going to lay waste. Oh my goodness gracious.
Count, it just disappears in an instant. I mean, the Hydras are glass cannons.
They're all at like 30 health. GG, Neeb does it. Secures the 4-0 victory and is your WESG North American champion.
I think we all knew how strong of a player Neeb is, and Neeb just proves it once again.
Well, I'm having flashbacks to last year's qualifier, standing here with you, another tremendous victory. And this is a battle that you've had time and time again, taking down Scarlett once again. So as far as your overall reaction to this, having the 4-0, did you expect it to swing so hard in your direction?
No, I definitely didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be a very hard match. And it was a hard match. The score doesn't really tell you how hard it was. Like, every game was pretty even. Like I had to fight for it every time. It wasn't just like a free win kind of thing. So.
And speaking of that, if you go all the way to game number 1, where even the casters were kind of questioning, oh, this doesn't look like he's going to take it, but you came through in the end. So are you nervous in those moments, or do you feel secure in your ability to take it?
Right now in the current patch, I don't feel that nervous. I used to feel nervous when Zerg was very strong in the late game, because I felt like as the game goes longer, I'm just losing, so I have to find out like a good move to make really quick. But now, like, I can just play in my comfort zone and try to think hard to make good moves, and I don't really have to be rushed or anything.
Well, and speaking of that comfort zone, obviously the strategy that you've stuck to worked very well here, and that consistency. If you look at your competitive record, WESG last year, where you made it to the quarterfinals, still very impressive, but do you think that you're going to be able to push it a little farther?
Yeah, I definitely hope to do better this year. That's always been one of my big goals, to have a good result in a really high prize pool weekend tournament, which I've never done before, so I hope it's this next WESG.
Well, you definitely have the skill to prove yourself. Congratulations again on your performance here on the stage. We do have the check for you, and as our commentator said, you got a 3.5-hour drive home to start thinking about exactly how you will be spending that $10,000 that now goes in your pocket.